In this video, we are going to be looking at emergency route setup. Emergency routes are not included in the default list of routes that can be added to the system by using the Add Defaults button. This means that they must be manually set up for each installation. To begin, click the Add Routes button. Enter the pattern 911 and then click the expanded options icon. From here, select the trunk this route will use, the rate, and the force caller ID. It's important when using SIP trunks to know which DID has E911 capability and to force this CID on all emergency calls. Before we move on, let's take a moment to talk about the TDM side of the Series 2 and outbound calling. The Series 2 has available connections for a PRI or T1 digital trunk, as well as up to 26 analog phone lines. If either of these options are going to be used for outbound calling, a 9 must be passed to the TDM side to denote it as an outbound trunk call. This fact is very important in emergency route setup because it requires the insertion of an extra 9 before the call is passed to the TDM side. This is done using the trunk prefix option. Lastly, note that this only applies to trunk lines attached to the Series 2. If your system is using SIP trunks, you will not insert an extra 9 on the 911 route setup. Finally, check the Emergency Route checkbox and click Save. Once finished, you will note that the information about this trunk is in a bold red font. This means that the system is aware that the route is an emergency number. Next, we are going to repeat the process for 911. Because guests might dial either 911 or 911 in an emergency, it is mandatory that both routes be set up. As before, we will enter this pattern, select the trunk and rate, and force a CID. In this case, we will also not prepend or strip any digits. This is again because the TDM side of the Series 2 requires a 9 be present on all outbound trunk calls, and the TDM side will automatically strip off the first 9, leaving only 911 in this case to be passed to the telco. Next, check the Emergency Route checkbox and click Save. In some hotels, it might be appropriate to set up other emergency numbers to accommodate guests from countries other than the United States. For example, the United Kingdom's official emergency number is 999. We can account for this by adding a route and using 999 as the pattern. Next, select the trunk, rate, and force CID as before. Next, we will strip all 3 digits and replace it with the appropriate local emergency number, in this case 911. Note that we selected the TDM side as the path for this outbound call, and the TDM side will automatically strip off the first 9, leaving only 911. Lastly, check the emergency route and click Save. This results in a hotel where a guest from the UK could pick up any phone, dial 999, and be connected to the local emergency services. The reverse of this setup is also true. A system outside the US could be set up with 911 and have that number automatically redirect to 112 or whatever the local emergency services number happens to be. This concludes our look on how to set up emergency routes. Remember, it is an installer's responsibility to test all emergency routes before completing the installation. For additional information, please refer to the help page for the dial plan or the dial plan chapter of the Voiceware Installer's Manual. Thank you for watching.